Hey guys, what's up? Back here with another video. And for this video, it's going to be a beginning of a series where I'm going to be doing like a small curriculum where it's mainly for beginners. Of course, even if you're intermediate, you could probably um, learn from this. But this is mainly intro series. And the reason why I think this will help is because if you listen to this all the way through, I feel like you'll gain a lot of insight into like the art supplies I'm going to be talking about. And I've used many art supplies since I started drawing. I've been drawing now since, since middle school, and I really started taking it seriously around high school. And now I'm about 20, 25, 26, right? Almost 26. But I've used a lot of tools throughout my art experiences, and I've used many different mediums, many different types of paper and drawing surfaces. And in the end, now I'm like mainly doing comic book style stuff, and so I'll be talking about I'll be talking about some painting supplies and mainly those drawing supplies. And in this video, I'm also going to talk about like the cost side of the things because that's not really talked about in a lot of videos. So I'll be mentioning some stuff about that. But first I'm going to start off with drawing tools. There's some people talking outside and they're pretty loud, so I don't know if it's going to show in the video. Hopefully it's not too loud, but it's okay. I think you guys could hear me. So I'm going to start off with the drawing supplies. So the first thing you're going to have to know how to use, of course, is a pencil, right? And honestly, any pencil will do if you're just sketching. If you're going to be doing like graphite work, you're probably going to need softer type of leads and harder types of leads. But for the sake of just sketching and just, practicing, you're just going to need a number 2 pencil. And to use a number 2 pencil, of course, you're going to have to sharpen it. I have this sharpener I bought from a dollar store nearby. It's pretty effective. Of course, the blades go dull after a while. You got to buy like a really good sharpener. But that, like, a sharpener like this will last like 2 years, That's a long time, or like a year, right? And so sometimes I'll even use like a pocket knife to sharpen the pencils. But I don't recommend doing that if you don't like using blades, because of course it's dangerous sometimes. Some people use an X-Acto knife. That's a little bit safer. Honestly, for me, I feel like it's safe, like if you're not holding it wrong, like if it's not going to slip out of your hands and stuff like that. But of course, there's always a risk, so don't say I didn't warn you. And the type of pencil I used to use was mainly Ticonderoga, but after buying these Mitsubishi pencils, I didn't even know Mitsubishi made pencils. But yeah, it's HB, but I think it's really close to the number 2. And the problem though with wooden pencils is that they'll always wear down, right? And so I have these pencil holders that I made. So the back here, I made enough space to be able to like hold these pentel erasers. So these pentel erasers, I can't find where my other pencil went. But another pencil that I use, mainly a lead pencil, it's those drafting Pentel pencils. I've had it for 8 years. But for the sake of this video, I wanted to find where, oh, there it is. Okay, here it is, this pencil. Had this for 8 years. Best lead pencil I've ever had. These hold 05 leads. They're automatic or whatever they're called. I forgot what the word is, but they're amazing. I mean, I put the whole, like when I buy a new lead package, I just put all of them inside. And it'll last me like a long time. And the pentel erasers come for, they come in these like packets right here. I buy the whole thing, like these green ones. And they got a bunch of them inside. And like whenever I just run out, I just put a new one. Really efficient, great pencil. The metal tip is really durable. It's never bent, never broke. If you buy packs of, like this was, when I bought this was $6 or $5, right? And compared to like lead pencils you buy in like regular stores like that aren't metal, I always recommend getting a metal like barreled pencil with the metal tips, because if you get like the plastic ones, they wear down over time and they look like crap and they break very easily and they'll always have problems. But this pencil is solid. 8 years, no problem. It's maybe even pushing on 9 years. Amazing pencil. But yeah, pencil holders, you could always adjust them to your needs. Like I always like a little bit more grip, so I put this tape on mine and this little eraser in the back. And they extend the pencil's time with you, Like you could have a pencil like this one here. This wasn't a pencil holder until recently. So see that? You could even move it out over here, tighten it, and you could still write with it. So it's amazing. It'll, like a pencil like this would probably, like a regular pencil lasts me about like a month. No, probably less than that. But yeah, it allows you to have the pencil last a longer time. Now, done with the pencils, erasers. You're gonna need a kneaded eraser. So far, the necessary things you're gonna need is a pencil, right? You don't need a lead pencil. Until you get good with a regular pencil, don't buy a lead pencil. Don't do it. Because with regular pencils, you learn more about drawing looser with the lines and everything. But when you start with a lead pencil, what happens? You're always afraid of breaking the lead. It's very thin lead. And so if you press on it just, you might say, oh, just so if I'm going to be careful of breaking the lead, I'm going to draw looser because I'm going to try to draw lighter. But that's not true, because you're going to grip the pencil harder. You're going to try to have more control over it. Pencil like this, yeah, you might break the lead. But the reason why you draw looser with a pencil like this is because first it's lighter. It feels like that. And also you could use the sides. So you'll get different textures, different movements. You could hold it from the side. With lead pencils, I feel like if you hold it from the side, it'll just break the tip. With these it won't. So I recommend just buying a regular pencil first, right? You could buy these holders are very cheap. I bought like 5 of them off Amazon. It was like $3. It was a good deal. I don't know if it's still up there. Maybe. Art stores sell lead holders. There's one here I have that I didn't adjust that much. So like this one, I just stuck a pencil in the back and a pencil in the front. It's like those saw person in half tricks, you know? They'll put like the person's shoes in the bottom. And I'm getting off topic. Okay, no more distractions. So pencil, number 2 pencil, a regular wooden pencil. That's what you should have. Save yourself the money if you're starting off, right? Or even if you're just starting all over and just practicing learning the fundamentals. Ignore all the other supplies. Just stick with a pencil. Get yourself this eraser. This eraser is like a nuke, right? You make a big mistake, bam, it's off the page immediately. Because you could erase so much with this. Kneaded erasers. This is like the technical stuff, you know? Like, this is where you get the little details, you know? You could, you know, if you're shading big areas and you want to start drawing with the eraser, you could sharpen it like that. Also, like erasers like this will help, but like it's a waste of money if you're just sketching. You're not doing serious work, you know? Like if you're just practicing and sketching, you just really need these types of erasers and a pencil. Now we're pretty much done. Like if you're still a beginner and you're learning how to draw, you shouldn't even be moving on to the other supplies. You don't need to, right? I mean, I advise getting yourself like a gel pen or something, like any kind of gel pen. So this one I didn't use it yet, so that's why it's got that bubbly tip on the tip. But any kind of gel pen will be amazing for beginners in terms of inking, because you just learn how to, you know, draw with ink. It's way darker lines and they're way finer, different than pencil. That's what separates inking and penciling, right? Penciling is very loose and you can understand the shapes on the page because they're very wispy and they're not like totally clean. But when you start drawing with a pen, lines are so sharp, right, that any small mistake, with the high contrast between the black ink of the medium you're using and the whiteness of the page, it's such high contrast that any small mistake, any small shape will throw the observer off. You know what I mean? It's just that's what happens when we work in high contrast. But with pencil is gray. Sometimes it could even be so transparent on the page that when you're so loose and light, it's just, things just look better. It just, you know, it looks more, it gets a person to look more. But when something is so high contrast, like black and white, like pure black and white, like with ink, it just becomes so like harsh on the eyes. And so that's why it has to be done so tight and well. Inks have to be done tightly. They can't just be loose. I mean, of course there are some styles that have loose inks and stuff, but that's a different story. There's techniques and there's like the type of way you put it down on the paper is not just a rush, it's a kind of calligraphy. I don't know how to explain it. You'll see it like when some artists ink that way. But yeah, with pens, you might notice something here that I don't have many fine liner pens lying around. Because I don't use many. The only ones I use, like sometimes when I'm specifically doing like fine liner work, are these, the Copic multi-liners. So Copic multi-liners are not that cheap. That's a shame because they're very good pens. But microns either. Microns aren't cheap either. So microns, where are they? I don't use microns anymore, but I used to. And one thing I don't like about microns is that the tip always gets damaged. For these ones, this one's very old, so the tip wore down a bit. I drew a lot with this. I drew like maybe 40 pages, 40 different art pieces with this one. These are old. Yeah, but yeah, these ones, they're pretty durable, the tips for them. And compared to micron, I like the ink for these more water resistant, like if you're painting over them. Microns are water resistant, I believe, but I don't know. I'm not too sure, because sometimes I remember I used alcohol marker over microns once and it wasn't that good. In my opinion, I really like the Copic multi-liners the best. And honestly, I don't advise even using multi-liners if you can't use nibs. Use nibs first. And the reason why is because nibs will force you to understand ink more, and it gets you to be more cautious when you're inking. So I always recommend using the more high-risk tool in the beginning, in terms of like the tool with more variety, and the tool with more risk isn't the right word. It's just there's the tool with more variety, right? And so nibs, in terms of ink, have more variety, right? You can increase the line widths, right? So when you press, the lines get bigger. You see that? Because it lets out more ink. And these are the 3 different nibs I use. This one's like for really fine line work. This one is for like, you know, it's almost the same as this, but it's a little bit bigger. This one, I use it for lettering, because I like how it's like, the tip is kind of rounded, kind of, and it's got that bend to it. You see that? So that bend, it gets you to get more of like a writer type line, and I like that. And so this one's called the mapping one. This one's the Zebra G pen, and this one, I forgot what the name is, but it should say it over here. I don't know. Yeah, I can't even read it. I think I might need glasses. But yeah, those are the 3 nibs, and those are the replacements I have for them. It's so hard to read the font on them. So that's it with nibs, and that's pencils. Now brushes, inking brushes, different than painting brushes. For inking brushes, they're mainly watercolor brushes, right? And this what's it called? The Sumi brush, these Japanese ones, I really like them. Made out of natural hair. And so this is the difference between natural hair and synthetic, right? Synthetic hair brushes, of course, they're not natural, and so they're very smooth. It's with any kind of animal hair, right? Hair is rough, and it holds on to moisture, and it holds on to different types of whatever's on it, right? Any kind of liquid. So when you dip it, it holds on to the ink better, and it lets go of the ink slower. And so there will be less blotting and stuff, but in my opinion, it doesn't matter what brush you start with. I recommend starting off with like a cheap brush. Don't start off with something expensive, because all you're gonna do is ruin the brush, because you don't know what you're doing. You're gonna dip in the brush all the way all the time. It's gonna get ink underneath this thing. You're not gonna know how to wash it out. You're not gonna use a brush cleaner. I mean, when you use a cheap brush, it doesn't matter. Just use soap, right? You don't need a brush cleaner. And you won't care about the cleanliness of your brush. You just do whatever. Ink is very harsh on brushes. Sometimes, like, see these are the same brushes here. These are the Winsor Newton Series 7. This one here looks massacred. It looks terrible. Look at this. It's because of I hardly wash this one anymore, because I was gonna throw it out, but I decided to just tape it up like this, and you know, it works very well. This one here is a new one. I've used it a couple times. Still looks very clean, right? Once it gets wet, it points up again. This one here, the Kuretake, I forgot what it's called. Kuretake Menso brush, yeah. These ones are amazing too. So in my opinion, when I'm inking, I use these kind of, sometimes this one here I use for painting, and I also use it for inking. So I use it because it's flat, you know, I could fill in large areas fast. And sorry guys about the noise outside. I don't know, there's a lot of people outside today, just talking very loud. No problem though, because I don't think it's too distracting. But yeah, back to the video. So inking brushes, you know, I use these are mainly size 2. Yeah, these are size 2, and this one's pretty close, I think. Maybe it might be a different measurement because made in a different country. Maybe, I don't know. Seems like it's the same. Now, I have these other brushes here. Sometimes I'll use this one for a wash, right? Doing ink washes. This one also. But mainly, these are for painting here. And when I paint, I use acrylic and watercolor. And the concentrated watercolors. So here I'm done with the inking. And I always recommend for inking, just please buy a cheaper watercolor brush. A number 2 or a number 3 or a number 1. Depending on the fineness of the lines. Like sometimes I'll even use this for inking. It's very small. But it's in my opinion, the reason why I don't like it is because it's not flexible. So that's why you get like a number 2 brush or a number 3. They're more flexible, even the synthetic ones. And yeah, if you're just new to inking, just get like a regular zebra mapping pen, or actually get the G pen. G pen's great for beginners because you get way more line variation. This one, it doesn't open that much compared to this one. And get yourself some kind of ink. I recommend getting some kind of like cheap India ink, right? Or Dale Rowney acrylic black. And this one is great because it's acrylic. So when you paint over it, it doesn't leave that weird glossy feeling. Sometimes if you use those ultra draw inks, which I use, they're expensive. I don't recommend getting those when you start off. It's just going to be a waste of money because you're not going to know what you're doing with it if you're going to be painting along with it, or sometimes using another medium along with it. But in my opinion, if you're a beginner and you want to paint over your ink sometimes, or even use like charcoal with them, or use anything else with them, right? I think these are awesome because they're acrylic and they're just so versatile. You could use them with a lot of stuff. Yeah, now done with the inks. Now move on to the painting brushes. So when I paint for under paintings, like I mainly paint mixed media, right? So I use acrylic and these condensed watercolors. These are pretty much dyes, right? The PH Martin concentrated watercolor. They just dye the paper, right? And I use many different colors, and I like to use these in the beginning when I'm just laying down the color, and then I'll start going in with acrylic, right? So some acrylics I have are like these Dale Rowney ones, just like the ink brand, right? Sometimes they separate, so you got to shake them, right? But yeah, these are like liquid acrylics, and they're very, very, very vibrant. I like them a lot. And I also have the golden acrylics, right? I've had this for a year now. More than a year. Probably a year and a half. I'm not even a fourth of the way through with it. It's pretty crazy. Because I got 2 yellows, but the other one's a smaller tube, and I still have majority of it. And I practice with paint often, but the thing that I do to make sure that paints last a long time is I have one of these. Where'd they go? Okay. I think I left it in another room because I was washing it. But these things. I forgot the name. Whatever. Stay Wet Handy Palette, right? And the inside of these, the other side, the other one. So when you close it, right, you got the other piece, and the other piece has like a sponge in it. On top of the sponge is paper, and that paper you boil it, and it's a Stay Wet palette, right? And when you boil it and put it on top of the sponge, and you put some water on the sponge, and then you put the paint on top of the palette, right? You end up with like an environment for the paint where it doesn't dry as quick, and so you can work the acrylic paint way longer because acrylic dries so quick. If you don't get a Stay Wet palette, you'll run out of paint way faster. And if you're using a professional quality paint, it will not last a long time because acrylic dries, and so you're gonna have to keep using more and more and more. So if you have a wet palette for it, that's always good. But in my opinion, I do not think you should start painting with acrylic. And the reason why is because acrylic, A, if you're going to use a good kind, it's expensive. B, it dries too quick. You cannot push and pull the paint. You cannot mix as well as oils, I feel. It mixes well. I'm not saying it don't mix well, but in my opinion, if you're starting off with painting, use oil paint. And the thing about oil paint that makes it amazing is because the colors are beautiful and you could push and pull the paint all you want. It stays wet forever, right? It takes like days and months to dry. It could take months to dry. And it's a fun experience, but the only problem with it is all the solvents. So what you can do is you could buy non-toxic versions of these paints, right? And non-toxic ones, you'll be able to use indoors, right? And or without a ventilated area. In my opinion, I think if you do not have a ventilated area, then you use acrylic and watercolor, right? Do not use oil paints in a non-ventilated area. You're just gonna make yourself sick. They're gonna smell funny. The solvents are not good for you, even if they're odorless, right? Just because something is odorless doesn't mean there's no fumes. Just keep that in mind. So there are some water-soluble oil paints you can get, and those are great too. You can use those, and there's also like walnut oil instead of the linseed oil, and instead of like the mineral spirits, and instead of the paint thinner you could use, there's different types of oils and chemicals that you could use that are non-toxic when you're doing oil paint. If you're interested in oil painting, I recommend watching other videos on oil painting. I'm not an expert on oil painting, but that's how I started. And I was able to learn a lot through oil painting, like about color theory and stuff like that. I don't think you can learn color theory without doing painting. It's impossible, right? I mean, even if you do digital has so many colors. I do not think it's the good way to go. Start off with paints, okay? Do that. And when you do that, you're just going to learn how to manipulate paint better. You're going to learn how to control colors. You're going to learn how to, you know, you're going to develop an order to how you draw and how you paint. And I don't think you can teach somebody how to paint in a step-by-step manner. Painting is something that comes naturally. I've seen that. I've heard that from a lot of professionals too. Like, even read a lot of old art books, and they always say like painting is something you develop on your own, like the order in which you do it. And you know, some say paint the background first. I see some people paint the foreground first. In my opinion, sometimes I'll do a new painting and I don't know where to start. You know, you just everything's different, you know, and painting teaches you that about art. And so you have to paint if you want to get good at coloring. And so, yeah, getting started in colors, I recommend oil paints, and make sure that you know how to do them right. Don't just buy them and do whatever, because you might actually physically hurt yourself. So that's not good. Don't do that. You have to research how to oil paint. And if you can't oil paint and you don't have the means to do that, then do acrylic. But always start off with cheap paints, please, because you will waste paint in the beginning. You will. It's inevitable. Learning how to paint, you're going to waste a lot of supplies by accident, and it's going to be very messy. It's very dirty, right? You're going to need like some kind of rags to be able to clean up with. You're going to need, I also recommend getting canvases. Painting on canvas is better because the texture, right? When you paint on paper, it's just, it feels funny. I don't know how to explain it. For a beginner, it will feel funny painting on paper because you're not going to have control over the paint. So all you're going to do is just ruin the paper. So get like big packs of canvases, and I mean like the boarded canvas, right? So stuff that's on board, or even draw on canvas alone. You could just buy canvas by the bulk, right? And cut it up on your own, and then just paint on it, right? And you could always just cover it again in white and then start all over again. You could always buy, what's it called? Gesso, and then just cover your paintings up that you don't like and start all over again and practice. And so you could always buy boarded canvases. You could buy them in bulk, very cheap. I remember one time on eBay, there was like, I bought a bunch of boarded canvas, and it was like 8x10, and I bought a pack for like of 20 of them for like $15, like or $20. It was so cheap. I remember, of course today everything just seems more expensive, but I just remember, like, take advantage of what you see in the market right now. Whatever's cheap, you know, try to take advantage of that and take that opportunity. Sometimes prices change. I mean, all the time they change, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. If you want to get better, you're gonna have to put some time and money aside and try to find a way to take advantage of the situation you have. And I know it's difficult sometimes, you know, especially with the prices. I see a lot of people giving tutorials, and they'll recommend like supplies, and then you go search up the supplies, and it's like, what? This paint's $300, and then you just don't want to paint no more, you know. But yeah, I recommend when you start off, use student grade stuff. Do not get the professional stuff, please. All you're gonna be doing, like, you could draw professional stuff using student grade materials. So when you go to art stores, they have student grade, they have artist grade, and then they have professional grade, right? And so, of course, the professional grade is the best and the artist grade is going to be the worst. But it doesn't mean you cannot make good art with the artist grade. You should always buy artist grade when you're starting off, or if you're doing practice. Do not use professional grade quality for practice. You're just wasting your money and your time, right? Because if it costs more, right, you're going to have to use time to make that money, right? And so you're always going to be wasting time if you're using more expensive stuff, right? You're just wasting more time. and you want to make sure your practice is quick and cheap. So buy the cheapest stuff, please. I have to drill that in because I know I've seen this in the art market. Like people just go to art stores and spend like hundreds of dollars on like some of the dumbest supplies I see. Like the art market, a lot of it is a scam. Like honestly, like when you go to art stores and you see some of the stuff they're selling, you're like, dude, you don't need this. Like you don't even, it doesn't even, like the only reason some of this stuff costs so much is because of course it costs a lot to make. And at the same time, they know some people are just going to buy it because they think it's going to make your art better. At the end of the day, nothing's going to make your art better except your skills. So you could draw with anything. You can make anything look good with anything. But of course, having awesome art supplies does help. But that's only if you know what you're doing. So if you don't know what you're doing yet and you're still practicing, please use the cheapest material you could find. And I have to drill that in because trust me, I'm talking from experience here. Like no brush is going to make you draw better. Sometimes I see it in the comments like, man, this brush is going to make me draw better. I know it. And then I know it's not. If you don't learn how to ink, you're not going to ink with a good, even if you get a good brush, right? So please use cheap materials. Like these here, I've had these for years and they're very cheap. I bought the whole pack. They're like Monty Mart, I think. And it was like a whole pack of them for like $8. It was a whole brush set for oil paints. And honestly, they work for all types of paint, from watercolor to oil. These ones here, Utrecht, I love this brand. I can't find them anymore whenever I go to art stores and stuff. But this one's amazing. It lasted for years. I had ink dry up on it, oil paint dry up on it, acrylic dry up on it. It's a synthetic, but it's still clean. It's crazy. The only natural hair ones I have are for inking, but for painting, I use these flats here are all different sizes, but they're all synthetic. This one's the bounciest. It's got like a bounce to it, so it's like it's fun to use for certain things, certain textures. And another brush I have is this, and this I use for like fading and stuff. So I'll use it for like environments, like if I'm trying to create like an ambiance, right? Say I want like a cold air to the environment, right? I'll like, you know, and I want to fade a character out from the legs, from like the waist down or something, from belly down. I'll just like, you know, use some blue paint with some white and then like kind of fade the character out. And it gives like this nice air type foggy feeling sometimes to paintings that you can't get with like a regular flat brush, because a flat brush will create rough textures. This one is like those makeup brushes, and so like you can create really cool fading effects with this. They're called, I forgot, they're called Oval Mop. Yeah, I guess this one's a 3/4. Princeton's a great brand. I like them. They create great brushes. Princeton is the one I used for when I first started inking. I used a Princeton brush. It was around number 2 or 3, something like that. Great brush. Another tool I use for painting though are these kind of like palette knives, right? So I got this one, and then there was another one. Have no idea where it went, but it's like a regular palette knife, and I recommend a palette knife if you're going to be mixing paints. Do not mix paints with your brushes unless you know what you're doing. The reason why I use palette knives to mix paint is because you could always grab the right amount of paint. When you use a brush, you end up mixing paint with other paints, and you just make a mess. Palettes are... they can get messy. So yeah, that's all of that. And then now also paint markers, right? I'll use Poscas for paint markers. I like these acrylic paint markers. These can be rough to use on like professional work sometimes. If you don't know what you're doing, you'll end up with like stiff acrylic lines because these dry really fast. There's ways to smudge them in and stuff like that. Great for sketches though, amazing. Like I love these. But they're also pretty expensive. But so if you could afford all this, go ahead. You know, nobody's stopping you. Buy it. But if it's tough, you know, monetary wise, I always recommend you could still make the best art with a little amount of money. You know, so all you need from all this stuff here, really, the most important stuff: pencil, zebra nib, right? So this with a holder is probably around, I don't think it passes like $12, right? Pack of pencils, you go to a dollar store and buy a pack, right? Ticonderogas, they're cheap. You find them everywhere. Any kind of round brush, right? Like a number 6, right? Number 6, and a flat, any three-quarter flat, right? Some kind of number 2 inking brush, and you're already set to paint and ink everything with just these right here. just these, right? You're just gonna have to, like, you know, if you're not gonna be using a flat like this one, right? Like a flat like that one, you just find a way to use a flat like this one. Just use it with an angle and stuff, right? You gotta be more use that ingenuity, you know. You can do it. So that's pencils, inking. Right, now measuring tools and straight edges. Here you got this, the right angle maker. I mean, self-explanatory. I don't have to explain this. It's just a ruler. Now this. Oh yeah, then there's like palettes and stuff. You could use these. I use this one when I'm using these, because if I use it on the spongy palette I have, it'll just leak through the sponge and mess up the water that's in them. So this is amazing. Like when you're doing paneling, right? So, whoops, let me just move up here. Okay. I was about to talk about paper next. So yeah, you see that? So you could start off here and say you want to draw a line, and then you want to draw another line here that's exactly parallel to it. You just move up the paper. You just draw another line. This thing just makes parallel lines. I forgot what it's called. If you search a parallel line maker, parallel line roller, or whatever, I think that's what it's called. These I love these. They make really good lines. That means self-explanatory, right? Lines. Next, paper. If you're gonna be drawing on paper, you're gonna need paper, right? And so paper comes in many different forms. You have mixed media paper. You got Bristol board, right? Bristol board could be smooth. It could have that vellum, toothy texture to it. So I use smooth Bristol board for my main finished work. So something like this here, the Vilgax I drew from before, that's on smooth Bristol. And let me explain sketchbooks, right? Remember there was that one video I did a while back where I used a spiral notebook, right? So I used the notebook like this one, right? A notebook like this has these lined pages inside. You could draw on this, no problem. They're cheap. You could, you know, they're as cheap as newsprint pretty much. And you could draw, you have 100 sheets in them. That means 200 pages, and you could fill them up in no time. And you wouldn't care about the pictures you put inside them because you're not gonna sell them. You're not gonna be able to sell them because it's loose leaf, right? I mean, unless somebody really wants it. But you're not going to care about the sketches you put inside. Therefore, the practice will be faster and be sloppier. You won't care about what you do, and therefore you'll have more room to grow because you're going to be more careless, right? In a good way. But another kind of sketchbook are like these, right? So you realize it's 50 pound, right? 50 pound paper. This mixed media is 98 pounds, so it's almost double, right? So this thickness of this paper, right? It's very smooth paper, and it's toothy, right? So it's good for like you know, what's it called, sketching and stuff, and shading and pencil stuff, right? It's just, yeah. Now here you'll have this kind of paper. See that? It's way thicker. Paper like this, you can be heavier on it. You could even use some paint. Here I used a lot of whiteout and white ink, right? You could see that. And I used ink wash too. Now for Bristol board, yeah, this one also has some tooth to it, so you could kind of feel like it's got like this like toothy rough texture to the mixed media board that sketchbook kind of has too. But I use smooth Bristol board, right, for my finished work because it has no texture to it. It's just smooth. Well, it has texture and the texture is smooth, so it's a smooth texture. Then there's Bristol board with the vellum on it, right, which is a toothy texture or whatever it's called. I think it's called vellum. They have the vellum Bristol board, right? And then they have this other Bristol board that has like a rougher texture, right? And so what that does is when you go with ink on a rough texture, it's kind of like, no, let me demonstrate it here because that's a very exaggerated rough texture on this one. There's a dog barking outside right now, so might appear in the video, but yeah. So look at this. You see that here? When you draw on a rough texture, you can see some parts of it show the paper because it doesn't get hit by whatever you're drawing with, right? But then when you draw on a smooth texture, what happens? The whole paper gets touched by whatever medium you're using. So you end up with a less toothy mark, right? And so when you're using ink, that's why I like the smoother texture, is when I use ink, I'll get like better lines. And it's just, in my opinion, I could calculate what I'm doing better on smoother Bristol for finished work, and even painting. I paint on smooth Bristol also. I use the acrylic paint on this, but I paint very lightly with the acrylic because I don't want the paper to warp. Paper can warp, so you have to keep that in mind. I tape down my paper sometimes, so the tape I use is a tape like this one. So this is that painter's tape, right? This brand's called TSSR, whatever, some generic brand off Amazon. And so this tape, it doesn't rip off your paper when you put it on it. Some brands do. Like I bought this brand before. I forgot what it was. I don't think this was made for paper, but it's a Scotch tape brand. This is not for paper. Don't use this for paper. It tore off the paper before. It's not good for it. But yeah, they probably have a brand that's for paper, and I'm an idiot, so I might have not bought a different kind. But yeah, so that's what I got for paper. And then for canvases. So if you want to paint on canvas, I recommend just buying a canvas roll, cutting it up for whatever you want to paint, and then you could staple it onto boards. You could wrap it around boards with tape, and have fun, practice. Don't expect yourself to make professional work right away, because that's how you end up not liking what you do. Like, you expect yourself to go in there making good work and not having fun. Like, if you're starting off in art, do not expect yourself to have a career right away. Just expect yourself to have fun. That's what you're doing it for, right? Like, if you're going into art just for a career, and you're not like really young, and you're not planning to, like, what's it called? If you're planning to make money right away, you're probably not. Be realistic with yourself. If you're trying to make money, there's so many other routes in life that can make you money way faster. It would actually be stupid to go into art like saying to yourself that I'm gonna do this for like the main goal is to make money. Because if the main goal is to make money, there's so many other ways to make money. So your main goal when you're starting art is to actually, like, it's an outlet for yourself, right? To have fun, and whatever expression means. I don't know what it means, but I guess it's like, I understand it, but art's just fun. That's why I like doing it. I like drawing because there's stuff in my head I like to draw. So I draw it on paper. And so if you're trying to do that, then art's for you. But the whole point of this video, I just want to show all the supplies because I get a lot of questions about that. I know it's a long video. It's probably going to be like 45 minutes. But if you've stuck this long, then, that means you want to learn. That's a good thing. And I'm not saying that stuff about, the art career stuff to discourage people. I'm just saying, like, of course there is jobs in art. I'm just saying, like, if the main goal is to make money, there's better goals out there, But yeah, stick to it. Like, if you want to improve, that's a good thing. And if you actually want this to be a job, like you want to do what you love, you have to learn how to do it right. And so that's why I'm going to do this series, and I'm going to try to explain, like, all the stuff I know. And I think I know a good amount, right? I see a lot of YouTube pages. They just, it's not that they lie. It's that I feel like they just don't tell you what you need to know. Because at the end of the day, it's, it's the art market, right? It's like the art market is supplies and lessons, right? They sell you lessons and they sell you the supplies, and they know there's a good portion of people that want to make money off their art, because there are people out there that sell art for a ridiculous amount of money, and there's a lot of people out there that think they could do the same. Of course, maybe you can, but, like, at the end of the day, like, most people should really be into art because it's fun, which is what people have done throughout most of human history. Like, when you do art, it's like because you just want to say something, right? And you could say it with a pencil. So I think that's a good note to end the video on. And I think that's pretty much all supplies. Wait, yeah, one more supply. This stuff. So whenever, and charcoal. How did I forget about charcoal? So I got charcoal dust, right? This stuff here. It's called raven powder, right? It's like you open it and it's just charcoal dust, right? Because I used to drill these pieces of charcoal down. I'll show you here. I used to drill this charcoal down, right? I got a little nice box of charcoal here. So I used to, you can't see it that well, but I used to, like, shred it down with a small pocket knife or sandpaper. and then I used to use it. And then when I'm done with charcoal, sometimes I use ink on top of it or paint, and when everything dries up, I use fixative. I do not like toxic fixative because I mostly do my work indoors, and I like to kind of, I usually finish painting towards nighttime. Never really finished early in the morning. And so I'm not going to go outside and spray my work at night, right? So I use this stuff. It's odor-free, non-toxic. I advise you, please, when you're using toxic art supplies, like that, say, please read the warnings for every art supply you buy. Some art supplies, like, you could think they're harmless, and if you read the warning, it says, please call poison control if you inhale, you know? Or please do not use indoors, or please do not use in this certain temperature. Because sometimes if you breathe some of the stuff in, it's not good for you. But yeah, this Spectrafix, I think that's what, yeah, Spectrafix. This stuff is made out of like milk protein, and it dries on your painting, and it's transparent, and so it keeps everything fixed to the page. And so if you drew with charcoal and you put your hand on it, the charcoal won't come off. So this stuff just fixes everything to the page. I use it after I'm done with everything, because I use charcoal almost in all of my finished stuff now. So yeah, so that's all the supplies I use, and you know, this is excluding like the lead that I use. I don't think I went over the lead. I don't think so. But yeah, that's some of the lead I use. Pentel 0.5. That's the stuff I use for this one's a 4B here, but I mainly use the 2B for 0.5 lead. And then you got some jelly roll. This is just some stuff you don't need. It's just the stuff on the side, you know, stuff that I just got lying around. Then I use these. These were 4B leads for like the, where's that pencil? It doesn't matter. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. Oh yeah, here's the pencil. This one. It's these ones with the holder, and they got like the leads you put inside. So I like these when I'm on the go. They're just nice. And these are the Mitsubishi leads. Mitsubishi's a great brand when it comes to pencils and stuff. I had no idea until like last month. 2 months ago or something. I forgot when. But yeah, hope you learned something. And oh yeah, I keep ending the video and then bring something new. This is what I ink from, like these little bottles here, because these fit right into it, and you could just, you know, you don't use the whole entire inkwell like this. I see some artists doing that. It's not a good idea, because you end up drying your main supply. But when you use a smaller container, it dries way slower, so that's better. But yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. If you got any questions about more supplies and stuff, or if you want to ask me about certain supplies that you think I might have tried and for like a review on them or something, you could let me know in the comments. And thanks for watching. Have a great day.